Welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. Hey Paul, welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. How are we doing?
Yeah, all good, thanks, Danny. How are you?
I'm not too bad. You know, it's been a nice sunny day today, so I can't really complain at that.
Yeah. Well, it's always a bit depressing. I prefer it when it's raining when I'm sat in the office because you feel like you're not missing out on anything.
Yeah, that's very true. It's always a case, you know. Usually it's like Monday to Friday really sunny, Saturday, Sunday raining when you've got time off.
Guaranteed. Yeah, and the other note there is never look at Apple weather on your phone either because it's never accurate.
Instantly, first bit of a tip of the podcast there, Paul. So, I mean, Paul, so, you know, usually I tend to ask my guests like a tagline or a logline to kind of summarise who they are. Do you have yours at hand?
Yeah. I gave this a little bit of thought when you sent it over. So it's based a bit on, I suppose, how I sort of like to come across with my personal brand online. So what I've come up with is a generalist digital marketer with morals.
Oh, nice. Okay. We're going to touch upon that in a second, definitely.
Good stuff.
First thing I want to do is I want to take you back to when you was a kid, and the teacher would say to you, Paul, what is it you want to be when you grow up? What was the answer you would give him when you was a child?
Yeah, so I think the first one I can remember is probably I wanted to be an archaeologist, probably based on the fact that I liked Indiana Jones, probably nothing else other than that. So when I remember actually looking into it a little bit more and realising it was sort of, you know, middle-aged men in socks and sandals digging around in the mud, not quite as exciting as Indiana Jones. So that's probably the first one I remember. And then I think after that, when I started properly thinking about what I wanted to do around sort of the end of primary school, beginning of secondary school, I always wanted to be a film director.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's two completely different things, which is really interesting, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, I guess, you know, Paul, I know you from, and we'll probably jump into how we've met, but maybe for the guys who don't know you, maybe you could give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour of who you are and kind of where you've come from to kind of where you've got to right now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I started out, I went to university and studied like sort of more graphic design focused, but also filmmaking as well. So it was art design and media was the name of the course. And it was more through sort of chance than design that I ended up on that course. I had sort of the perfect combination of A-levels, and I've never even planned it like that. I remember chatting to some of my friends on my course, and they were sort of comparing notes on, so how did you get through the interview to get onto this course and stuff? And I was like, what interview? And it turned out that I was the only one who didn't have an interview just because I happened to have the right combination of A-levels, which were English language, English media, art and design graphics at the time as well. So I've never planned it like that. And I think that's probably where I've ended up how I have. It's never like a grand plan. I think when people talk about where they've ended up in their careers and stuff like that, you know, when you go to an interview, you try and make it sound like, you know, you've had this master plan since the beginning and it all fits together perfectly like this amazing puzzle. But actually, it's just a load of sort of, I've tried a bit of this, didn't work, tried a bit of that, didn't work, and then sort of finding your way as you go along. So so that my first job from university was working for a design agency. So what I was called then was a new media designer. And the reason I ended up in that really was not anything to do with my degree. It was very much, I had a geeky friend at uni. And what we did is when we finished, we stayed at uni between the period of us finishing our course and then us going on to graduate. So we thought we'd have a good 3 months of, you know, enjoying it and not having any deadlines and stuff like that. And we spent that time, me and my housemate with my other geeky friend, going into the computer room and teaching us how to code websites because we wanted to get a sort of online portfolio. And this was sort of early 2000s, late 90s. So it was all quite new and exciting websites. And actually, I probably learnt more in that 3 month period than I did in my entire degree. It was really, really good. And so that allowed me to go and get that first job as a new media designer. So, you know, hand coding websites in Dreamweaver and using Photoshop to design and stuff like that. And I think it was a time, a bit like app design was a few years ago, where everyone wanted a website, but no one actually knew how to make them any good. And so I just sort of fell into that role, worked there for a couple of years. It was quite a tough environment. It was very, very competitive. We used to we used to compete with each other, really. That was how the agency was set up. So we'd have big clients like Mercedes-Benz or Budget Rent-A-Car or whatever come in, and then we'd have to separately work on our pitches for them. Given this is my first job, so I'm early 20s, and so you'd be sort of hiding in the corner, making sure the person next to you doesn't see what it is you're working on, and then you'd have to take your turns going into pitch to them, and then hope you got chosen. So I survived in that for a couple of years, and then the company had some financial difficulties, and I thought about what I wanted to do next. So the company obviously went under there, so it was quite tough getting made redundant from your first job, but in hindsight, I think that was quite a good experience for me. I didn't have any, dependents or anything like that. I didn't own a house or anything like that. So it was probably quite a good time for that to happen. Did a bit of traveling, and then came back, and I thought, bright lights, big city. I want to go to London. I always loved going to London when I was a kid. My grandparents used to take me there every Christmas. So a job came up, which was working at a sort of a federation of schools. But it was very much a sort of design role. So it was overseeing all of their prospectuses, all of their websites, all of that sort of stuff. So there's a bit more print design involved. And I even got involved in the long term in going into things like devising what the assemblies would be like. So I'd make them like grand 15-minute video presentations, with all my favourite tracks, music playing in the background and stuff. And then that would get sort of farmed out to all the different colleges. So that thinking back, it's probably the job I enjoyed the most because it was so diverse, and I enjoyed the sort of the interaction with the pupils and stuff like that. It was really good. Did that for about 5 years and ended up managing some staff. It became bigger and bigger. Federation grew. Met my wife there, and then we decided to settle down and move out of London. And I got a job at university, so staying in education, but it was more focused on sort of print design and stuff. And then that's when I really sort of hit upon digital marketing, and that was a really steep learning curve. So I started off there as a sort of print stroke web designer, I would say, and moved right up to head of digital at the university. So that was University of Bedfordshire, and not one of the best performing universities, but what was good about it was that I got to really really try loads of different stuff. There wasn't, it was really really open, and you could just say, let's try this, and if it doesn't work, that's fine, we've learned something. So really enjoyed that. Learned loads, got loads of, analytics became massive. I was never very good at maths at school, so that was again a learning curve. And then moved on to my current job. So I'm currently working at a big FTSE 250 construction company, which again is similar, sort of similar in a lot of ways. More similar than I thought, actually, because it's quite a siloed organisation, a massive organisation. Like at the university, you have obviously careers, you have students, you have research, and where I am at the moment, there's loads of stuff going on there as well. So yeah. Sorry, I've probably gone on a bit long there, Danny.
No, not at all, not at all. And I guess I'm trying not to jump into this conversation too much, but
of course, no, go for it.
Before we jump in, so usually I ask my guests to pick. Let's go with four numbers from 1 to 100, please.
Okay. Let's say 3.
Okay.
22.
Yep.
44.
Okay.
And 98.
Awesome. They will all become clear later on down the line.
Okay. All right. Cheers.
So I guess, yeah. I mean, so for me, Paul, I guess I came across you. I think it was at the Digital Engagement Conference.
Yeah.
I think I was doing a talk on how to use WhatsApp how to build communities for learning. And you was doing a presentation, if I can remember rightly, and tell me if I'm wrong. It was on, I think it was called Shaping Your World or Shaping Our World.
Yeah, Shaping Your World. That's right. Yeah. So that was it was sort of very campaign focused. So it was talking about some of the new technologies we'd use, and it was basically just in a couple of lines. But that was all about making the construction industry look attractive to young people, so sort of 11 to 15-year-olds, and the sort of campaign we'd launched to try and own that issue.
So for me, it was really interesting. I guess one of the things which I come out, I was like, First of all, I need to get to know Paul a little bit more because that was awesome. Your presentation was brilliant. Your slides were different. It was enjoyable to watch.
Okay,
Um,
thanks, Danny.
and then it was kind of one of them things where I've kind of always been saying how L&D should be looking at digital marketing and looking at, there's so much crossover and kind of how actually if them two, let's call them teams, work together, you could get
Yeah.
really kind of specific and, you can do so much more, work so much more magic, I guess. And
Yeah.
actually, it was probably one of the things where I thought, am I even in the right job? And I think I spoke to you about kind of, how I can make a transition into
Yeah,
kind
you
of,
did. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, obviously we've had a bit of a chat about that before. I mean, it's a really interesting thing because on the flip side of that, obviously I've sort of found myself going from sort of graphic design to digital marketing, and then obviously I having spoken to you, I think, oh, maybe the L&D side is something I'm more interested in, because you're right, there is more of a crossover there that I hadn't even thought about before.
Yeah, and I think one of the things which obviously came out from looking at both our talks was using social media tools as a way of learning. And actually I'm doing a talk in June, and I'm talking about how the experience needs to be more like consumer grade technology,
Yeah.
which I can jump on in a sec. But I guess maybe yeah, maybe if you could, given I don't know how sensitive the stuff is, but
Yeah.
maybe if you
Yeah.
could maybe just share a little bit about what shaping your world was and how it looked and worked.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, the way that we were set a challenge by our CEO at the time that we need a campaign that pulls together everything we do at the group. So Kia, where I work at the moment, the construction company. But as I said, we're such a diverse group. We do the highways, we do facilities management, utilities, construction, all of this stuff. It's very hard to bring it together into one campaign. So we pitched some ideas, and we had an away day where we came up to different ideas, and the main thing I think that everything had in common was people, and how I know this is true actually of a lot of industries. A lot of industries say, "Oh, we have a skill shortage." Most people I speak to say, "Oh, we have a skill shortage," but this is something where we sort of identified, and there was a report that had come out a few months earlier saying, we need to keep this built environment going with the roads and the infrastructure and the buildings that we need and maintaining them all. And there won't be the people in the future to do it because it's not seen as an attractive industry. So what we wanted to do is make it look like an attractive industry. And actually, a lot of people have tried that already. But what we decided to do instead was sort of change it up and be really bold. And it was good that we were given carte blanche to do that, really, because a lot of them are very much what you expect to see. Graduates wearing high vis, hard hats. It's like get into construction. So we looked around and we looked for sort of ideas to sort of steal from other sectors, really. So one of them particularly was a campaign which Barclays had done. I think it was at a music festival whereby you could go in and answer some sort of questions about yourself, and it would spit out like a little fun avatar based on what you'd chosen as your choice. So we thought, oh, that's quite a good little hook. For to sort of gamify it a little bit and just sort of get people in. So that was the first stage of it, was to create this sort of avatar builder, and that was really, really fun because we'd come up with a sort of personality profiling quiz, and it would tell you what sort of job you'd be able to do, but it would be a really fun cartoony character with really subtle bits of built environment. They'd have a little road sign necklace, or one of them had an Australian hat, like road cones hanging off it instead of corks and stuff. So coming up with all those ideas was really fun. And then what we wanted to do was sort of lead them through the journey of the campaign, and take them on to the next stage, which is a sort of interactive street scene where it sort of breaks down myths and makes it look exciting. And then finally come to some animated videos and some profiles, some job profiles of actual people, because everyone thinks, oh, if you work in construction, you're either putting bricks up or whatever, but you've got quantity surveyors or design managers who are amazingly skilled at what they do, architects, and earn a lot of money as well. So breaking down those myths, and that was the main part that I was involved in. There was a whole nother piece that careers were doing whereby I'd work with them on sort of presentations. So what they would do is they would actually go out and do some schools engagement, take these tools with them, and present on all of this stuff, talk about their experience, and then we could do really good measurement on that. So we could actually say, how many schools have we engaged with, and actually try and sow the seed as early on as possible, really. So yeah. And the first thing we did was launch a report. So basically say, this is the problem. And then obviously came up with the solution, which I've just talked about.
So it's really interesting, this, because, from the key things which I remember, obviously, other than, your presentation, and, one of the things which stood out to me was kind of the use of, was it like, did you use snap codes and beacons and stuff?
So at the time, what we decided to do is we wanted to sort of make it unique. So we trademarked it. So we thought, well, what are the latest, what are the latest trends that sort of age group are doing? And that was at a time when I remember talking to you about QR codes, actually. And I said, I loved your presentation, Danny, but I didn't like the QR codes. But actually, I'll take that all back. I apologise, because QR codes are big again, thanks to the latest Apple update on their phones. But so yeah, you were right. I was wrong. But I was like, I don't want snap codes. One, they look ugly. Two, you've got to download a separate app to use them and all that sort of stuff at the time, a year or so ago. So I thought, well, what's the latest thing? I thought, well, snap codes are just out. That's where everyone's at. Snapchat, and that's probably died off a bit now. So what we would do is make it as easy as possible for that demographic, and obviously they would recognise that snap code. So the way we did it is we created what we called like virtual world plaques, and that was a literal plaque, like the blue plaques that English Heritage do. And on all of the projects that we delivered, we'd speak to the client and say, can we screw this plaque to the building? And we'd have no clear branding on it. It would be just shaping a world. And the idea would be people would come along, either scan the snap code. There was a URL on there as well. And we also had beacons in them, so that people with the beacons enabled on their phone, for example, if they had an Android phone, would walk past it and it would beep and it would say, interact with me. And then we used Blipper, which again is another thing we'll talk about in a minute, that sort of hasn't quite died a death, but has served its time maybe. Use Blipper. So what people would do is they'd get the Blipper app and they'd scan the plaque, and a little host avatar would pop up. So if it was, we did a building near the BBC, so it would be founder of the BBC would pop up and say, hi there, learn about this project. And there'd be a bit about the people, so who worked on it, how we supported the community when we did it. We could advertise jobs on there, but it would be very much carrying on that collaboration with the client. So rather than delivering the building for them and then disappearing off, we keep talking to them about keeping that content fresh, and they'd be able to advertise themselves on there and the great stuff they've done to improve that building as much as we could. So by having all that together in one plaque, it sort of made it our own sort of trademarkable collection of little digital tools, really. And I remember actually going to Blipper's offices in London Bridge, and I'd done it all, and I showed them, this is what we're doing. And they were like, wow, we've never ever spoken to a client directly before. We just deal with agencies who recommend that they use Blipper, to actually have a company come out here. And then they said, and also, why have you put our logo next to Snapchat's? They are our chief competitor. So we had to do quite a lot of talking them round about why that would work and how it would work and stuff. And they were really supportive, because they'd never seen it used like that before. So yeah. But as I said, it's amazing how fast things move, because I think that approach is dated already.
Yeah. So I think maybe the tools which you use, maybe Blipper, we know the troubling times that Blipper's been through and stuff, but I still think AI has its value. I just think
completely, yeah. And I mean, and the reason we chose Blipper was because that was I like doing stuff in house as much as possible and sort of owning it rather than just relying on agencies all the time. And Blipper was the only self-service AR tool. In fact, it still is, and it is still going. It was saved for how long we'll see, but whereby we could actually be really agile. We design the avatars in house, we'd upload them, we'd test it, we'd print plaques, and then off we went. And so you're right, there is a real gap in the market there, and that's why I think Blipper was saved just before it died, for that very reason.
I think the talk which I'm doing in June, I'm talking about kind of human-centered design, bringing in experienced design and looking at kind of campaigns and stuff like that. And I talk about this consumer-grade technology. And I think, I don't know if Paul, I'm making an assumption here, whether you use this kind of design thinking or this human-centered design approach when you're designing. But I guess, for me, if someone turned around to me and went, right, you can design experiences and campaigns for a living, I'd be like, right, where do I sign in blood? Like that sounds like my ideal dream job for sure.
Yeah, I get it, and it's really interesting because you're right. It's just all about the people, isn't it? And that goes on to a lot. I mean, I've just come off the back of a massive sort of 9-month website project, which has pretty much put me on my knees, and that's exactly the same. I saw something on Twitter, I think earlier this week, which was really, really, really good. And I was like, yeah, I know exactly what it means, because we talk about user testing all the time, and we're like, we need to test users, but actually you're not doing user testing, you're doing design testing. You're not testing the user, you're testing the design. And I think that's quite a good differentiation to make, really. And it's about that constant feedback and that way people think and stuff. I actually went to an agency a few weeks back, and they pitched themselves as it's all sort of psychological design, and it's all about eye tracking software, but even more than that, all about persuading people to do things in different ways, and the way you move a button one place, or the way you slightly rephrase a word, or you reward people even though they don't realize they're being rewarded. And actually my wife talks about it sometimes. She's a teacher, and she tried this technique on me when we were first married, where she would ask me to do something and then she'd say thank you before I'd done it. And then I think psychologically you think, well, I've had my thanks, so I will definitely do it, because I've had my reward before I've done it. Do you know what I mean? And that's a technique she gets taught in teaching, and it took me a good few years to wise up to it.
Wow. Okay, that's it's I mean, it's really interesting. There's a couple of books which just spring to mind, actually, thinking about it. There's one called Nudge. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
No, I haven't heard of that one, no.
Nudge, it's about kind of, example being, when you're driving your car and the petrol light comes on. The petrol light isn't to say, petrol's running out. The petrol light is there to kind of change context and nudges to say, oh, break what you're doing, your car's going to run out of petrol. And it's about that kind of building that habit, nudge, habit, change of context, go and fill your car up.
Okay.
But there's a couple of great books which is about kind of habit, and kind of how design and these kind of how like an infinite scroll now has got this kind of reward system pinned in it, and how Facebook and stuff have these kind of little endorphin hits. But I'll send them over to you. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, it's the same. Going back to that car analogy, it's the same as the things that flash up telling you're going too fast. The ones with the smiley faces and the sad faces are so much. I think there's some sort of stat, isn't there, about how much they're so much more proven to work than the ones that just tell you're going too fast, if that makes sense. And my kids are the same. They see it and they see a smiley face and they sort of like, oh, well done. Because it's like, my dad's a good dad. He's going the right speed. Whereas if it's just telling you the number, it's a bit different. So it humanizes it a bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think a couple of months ago I was down London. I say a couple of months ago, it must have been about a year and a half, if I'm being honest. And they did this thing outside schools. So you got to speed the barriers, these concrete barriers, what are outside schools, so people can't drive into them. And what they did is they painted 2 of them to look like children. I was
okay, yeah,
so
yeah.
When you drive past, you slow doan. Bob's like, that's really good until that becomes noise and it becomes standard.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and and we almost, what I've just talked about, that example, you're almost like that now. You're like, well, yeah, I get it now. Yeah. I know how this works. I'm not going to fall for your little cheap tricks.
Yeah, and it gets that initial hit, I think, but then afterwards you're like, actually, that might be a child there next time, and you've got this kind of behaviour in the back of your head to go, oh, it's only a speed bump, it's only a barrier. And
it almost goes like full circle and has the opposite effect.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. So looking at kind of, and I'll probably jump into some of the stuff you've been doing later on down the line, but looking at that kind of shaping your world, what was your biggest learning from that? And I guess, what if you was to do it all over again, how would you do it differently? And if so, how?
That's an interesting one. So I think it's all about forward planning and measurement, I think. So when we envisaged it, we said this is going to be a 24-month campaign. That'll be it, and then we'll be done because of the technologies we're using and stuff like that. But a lot more came from it than just what we initially envisaged, because what we actually managed to do was standardize across the business proper measurement for our school's engagement, which we didn't really think about at the time, that wasn't happening. So what that did is have a knock-on effect to other departments. So I think early on is sort of engaging other people in the business as much as possible, and perhaps the type of people in the business who you wouldn't necessarily think you should. So we've seen it being used by sort of procurement. The procurement professionals are going out there and talking about it and sharing it and stuff like that. We never thought we'd engage with procurement. We're like, we just talk to the marketing people out in the business or the PR people out in the business, and that's it. But it's probably to spread your net further and wider, I think, is probably one of the main learnings. And as I said, I don't like the phrase future-proof. I think it gets overused. Nothing's actually future-proof, but being able to sort of refresh it and review it, because we all say it's like a website. We say that's a garden that needs constant tending, and we always talk about that. But actually, there is I've delivered that, and I can relax now. That's sort of a natural thing to say, like, I want to do that. You don't necessarily go along and keep refreshing stuff as you should. So probably being a lot more, and you lose a bit of enthusiasm. We're like, what's the next thing and stuff like that. So probably being a bit more planned from the beginning of, okay, we've said 24 months. What does 24 months actually look like, and not be so obsessed with launch. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, definitely does. So I'm just going back to your tagline. So it was digital marketer with morals. Was it something like that?
Yeah, a generalist digital marketer with morals. I think the generalist bit is quite important, because I've realised, obviously, the more I do, is that I'm sort of an expert in a couple of things. I would be so bold to say, but really a generalist, because I'm in house and I oversee all of digital marketing. It's very difficult to specialise. But I think I wrote a blog post about it recently, about how actually I think it's important to have a couple of things that you're good at, and you properly a sort of an expert on, rather than just being a total generalist.
Yeah, completely agree. I think, I have a good, similar to you, good few things what I'm skill set at, but then I'm kind of like got my fingers in other pies, and kind of just, I think it's good to keep these things bubbling and boiling up, just That's so you can stay on top of it more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And with morals, explain that one.
Yeah. So this goes way back. So marketing can get a bit of a bad rap, really, and you only need to talk about the awful days of search engine optimization, when I used to work in an agency where I used to sit next to the person who looked after SEO, and they just spent their entire day trying to sort of trick Google into getting stuff higher up on Google. Google's a lot better at not letting you trick it now, but they were little old tricks whereby you would write the text in the code, or you put it on the page and make it white, or the same color as the background, so that Google searches and brings you up to the top for that. And I remember sitting next and thinking, this isn't right. You shouldn't be doing this. This is not going to last. So that's where it first started. And I think we've all had it. We rely a lot on analytics to prove our point. And I've worked at companies and had people come to me and saying, this is what I want to prove. I want a good stat that makes me look good to prove this. And the old saying that you can make analytics prove anything. So it's about that honesty piece, I think. And just as you go through, just being as honest as possible about what is working and what isn't, because, again, as you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but you learn more from your failures than your successes. And the other bit, I think, around moral piece and having morals, is working for a company that you feel is doing a good job, and actually believe in what they're selling and you believe in what they're doing. For me, I could never work at a company like a betting company or something like that. And I know some people can, and they can completely reconcile themselves to it, and easily look themselves in the mirror. But for me, it's about outcomes and seeing what you're doing, even though it's marketing and maybe it's not the core business of the business. There's people out there actually delivering the bread and butter stuff, having a sort of vicarious part in that.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. I think there's there's something to that, about that morals piece, and that kind of, we have these personal morals, and it it's hard, I guess, when you work you know, sometimes I've worked with clients in the past where fundamentally it doesn't sit well with you. You kind
Yeah,
of, it's like this goes against everything what I am about, and kind of, you know, it's a tricky one. But I think the white text and, you know, the stuff in the code is so real.
oh yeah, yeah. There was all sorts. I mean, and obviously Google have properly wised up to that now, and you know, and fundamentally, you just need to write good content, good accurate content. Really, but obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that. But yeah, yeah. It was all these sort of like nasty little backhanded tricks to get your stuff as high up. And I remember um, when I used to work at the university, we on the first day of clearing, we'd be bidding for the word clearing so that we'd end up top. But of
Wow.
course, we're bidding, on Google PPC, we're bidding against other rival universities who want that as well. And you can actually see how much we're paying for it. And you could be like, oh, we're up to like £8 a click now. And then we'd be like, oh, that's one of our competitors paying that. Let's get some people to click on it, cost them a bit of money, and mess up their pie chart. And I was like, we can't do this. This is like, but yeah, and then they'll be doing the same to us, and they'll be doing, and who benefits? Google. As you know, Google benefit from everything we do.
Yes, yes, we do. We do indeed. There's I read a great book recently, called Everybody Lies.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And it's a data scientist from Google, and he
Okay. Yeah.
talks about the analytics of what Google can prove now, and he used this model of what he picked up at Google. It's a great book. He talks about how using analytics now, you know, he talks about kind of this what the analytics show about, you know, people's behind closed doors search information, and how you can predict based on analytics now whether a horse will win in a race due to its heart size. And it's
Oh
really
wow.
really interesting book.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks for that. I'll check it out.
So probably gonna go with a couple of quick fire round questions here, and I say quick, they never are. So, but you know, if you was to kind of describe what you do to a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, let's go with a 5. How would you describe what you do to a 5-year-old?
Okay. So I've tried this with my kids. I mean, I basically keep it as simple as I make websites, and they get that. They get, oh, you make websites. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, that's probably what I go with, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. Sometimes simple is, you know, is definitely the best way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you were to give a gift to a book as a gift to 5 people, what book would it be and why?
Okay. Wow. Mine would probably be a book called. I don't know if you've heard of this one. A book called "Don't Make Me Think." Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it. I've not read it
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, by a guy called I think Steve Krug. And that's a really really good book. It's more about sort of web and mobile usability. But yeah, I just learned loads about that. I mean, it's what's really good is it makes it very very simple to understand. It's one of those books that you read and you're like, well, yeah, of course that's common sense. Of course that's common sense. Do you know what I mean? And but I wouldn't have thought to write it down, and I wouldn't have thought to articulate it like that.
Okay.
Yeah, really good book. And it's not like a big hefty volume or anything like that. It's quite straightforward.
Okay. I have heard of it. I think I've heard of it. I think I came across it. I was reading a book called The Design of Everyday Things, I think, by Don Norman.
Okay, yep,
I think,
yep.
like how Amazon is now. You've bought this book, so we think you will like this book. And I think I've heard it just by the title, but I'll
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
check that out.
it's a good title. It obviously, yeah, it's one that sort of sticks in your mind.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely put that on the old reading list.
Okay, cool.
Um, so this can be kind of, advice what you've heard in recent or right back to the start of your career. But what is the best bit of worst advice you've ever heard?
Best bit of worst.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that one?
So, maybe it's a conversation what you've heard, but where you've heard someone go, "Here's a bit of advice for you," and maybe it's not you, maybe it's something you've heard someone giving advice to someone else, but kind of, that kind of thing of where you go, "No, that's completely wrong." That advice.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah. So I think again, this that goes back to one of my old jobs. Someone I used to sit opposite. I used to have to say this one a lot, and it was always um, you should do it like that because that's how we've always done it. I think it's like because that's the right way because that's how it's always been done, and I don't need to tell you why that's bad advice.
Yeah, yeah, that is shocking advice. So, and a lot of these questions are kind of there to probe you, and some of them are a little bit deep, and then some of them are kind of quite lightweight. But let's go with social for a second. Social media. In your eyes, is social media a net positive or a net negative to society?
Overall, I would say positive.
Okay, this is good. And who's three people? I kind of asked you this many months and maybe even a year ago, but who's three people who you recommend everyone should follow?
Okay. Guy called Dave Chaffee. Anyone who works in marketing will know him. He's the owner of something called Smart Insights. He's probably the most respected marketer in the industry. Amazing website, Smart Insights. He's one of those people who you just like, how do you even think like that? So, yeah, amazing stuff from him. And as I said, anyone who's done a CIM degree or an IDM diploma or whatever will know him. Another one who's really good is a guy called Paul Boag. He has his own podcast. He's sort of an advisor, he works a lot with universities and stuff like that. And he just seems to be a bit ahead of the curve with everything. He does really sort of concise little blog posts, and again, it's none of it I would say was particularly like groundbreaking or world changing, but it's just so focused, one subject. Here's how you deal with it, move on. So yeah, he's really good. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few of others. Probably another one is an American guy, and he doesn't even work really in the same industry as me. He's much more of a sort of web developer, I would say. A guy called Brad Frost. Pretty technical, some of the stuff he posts, but he always makes it fun, and it's always quite nice to get an American take, I think, on how these things are developing and evolving.
Okay, this is good. So, question for you then. So, if you was to see Paul tomorrow, what one question would you ask him?
Paul Boag, if I was to see him tomorrow, I would say, how do you get buy-in to try something different?
Okay. Perfect. I've just written that down. So I've got Paul on the podcast.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, he probably, I've been at a couple of events where he's spoken. He won't know me, but yeah. Tell him I said hi.
Okay, will do. But there you go. I've got one good question, so at least make sure you listen to that one, Paul, so then we can go.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, good work.
So I guess one of the things which one of the reasons why I wanted you on the podcast, let alone just as the friendship that started out there and the advice that you give me over the past and stuff. But obviously this thing of learning and marketing and this kind of remixing and what could happen if the two teams kind of work together, so to speak, or be shared best practice or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you work with learning personally within your organisation? Do you kind of share that, or is it kind of still separate teams, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say it's very, very separate. But what's really interesting is, and you've made me think quite a fair bit about this, Danny, is what I do obviously is learning and development a lot of the time, whilst obviously we're running external campaigns and we're getting analytics and seeing what's working and what isn't working. And so I don't really work directly with L&D. I would say it's very much up in the HR department. They deliver their sort of training and that. And in fact, I would probably admit L&D is not my strong suit at all, and you could give a much better definition of it than I could. But I think what's really, really important, and what I've realised is actually within the marketing team, the PR team, internal comms or whatever, we're doing L&D all the time, or at least from my understanding of it. So it's always about teaching people. It's always about learning as well. So I write my own blog. The main reason that I do that is so that I can go out and find good people online who are writing about the latest trends, and I can keep myself fresh. If I know I've got a post to write every sort of 2 weeks, then yeah, that's how it works.
So it's really interesting. I think So L&D are doing this. I think they're slowly catching up with kind of some of the things what marketing do. You know, when we talk about kind of personas, analytics, and metrics and A/B testing and all this jazz. But maybe some of our listeners don't. Their only measurement they use is something called Kirkpatrick.
Yes, yeah, and I think this happens everywhere. So I think marketing is just because it's all about money, isn't it? So marketing, you can prove ROI. So you run a Google ad, you work for Amazon, you run a Google ad, you see 100 people clicked on that, 20 people have bought the product. That's because of my Google ad, and that's because of the UX of the website. I know that I've proved my worth to the business. So that's led the way. But even in PR and even in internal comms, there was up until a few years ago, PR were measuring stuff on sort of column inches. This succeeded this because we've got potentially this many column inches, rather than this many click-throughs, people have dwelled on the website this amount of time, people have filled in this form, we've got lead data and that sort of stuff. And internal comms is the same. I worked with someone and I don't agree with it. Work in internal comms are failed marketers. About how it was, because marketing is leading the way with that sort of stuff, but internal comms is caught up now, and PR has caught up as well. And I think L&D can be put into that same bucket.
Yeah, no, definitely. I guess, it's a great shout. It really is. But I mean, if you look at, I guess some of L&D's problems are, well, one, a lot of the products are going into this, going to more of a digital kind of, mobile first, digital first, and all the insert the buzzwords what are in there as well. But it is the right way to go. It is digital first and stuff. Yeah. But I guess this is a tricky question because your expertise isn't in learning and development as such. But what do you think L&D could take from marketing? Maybe let's just start with personas or something like that. What do you see as the big wins? What L&D could take?
Yeah. Personas is a tricky one actually, because and I don't know if the personas in L&D work the same as the personas in marketing. You would have heard this, I'm sure, but when we were working on our website project, we were looking at personas, and we were trying to categorize users and who would do what and who would act what, and one of the things that was told to us, and apparently I think it's probably quite an old anecdote, was we came up with a persona and it was a 60-year-old man. Have you heard this one?
No.
Okay, it's a 60-year-old man. He lives in the country. He has a roast dinner every Sunday. He walks his dog after that. And then that's your persona. But then obviously on the one hand, it's Ozzy Osbourne. On the one hand, it's Prince Charles. So sort of proving how personas don't really hold much heed from that point of view. So instead of personas, the way we did it for the website, it was just more around tasks. So it was around pain points and tasks, and why do I come to the website and what do I want to do, rather than that traditional persona. And you probably don't do that in N&D around, as I said at the beginning, you give them a name and an age and a demographic and a home life, because 40-year-old people act very, very, you can get mature 40-year-olds, you can get immature 40-year-olds. So that's my take on personas, really.
Okay, yeah, let's do it this way then. So, so personas. So I guess so let's talk about A/B testing and I guess split testing. But I guess we have. If you look at it from an L&D point of view, you've got your digital resources. You have an LMS, a learning management system.
Yep.
You have some people are using web portals. Some people are using LMSs. Some people are using still doing classroom. And maybe looking at it from an A/B kind of point of view. Yep. Do you think there's any value to that for L&D?
Oh, completely, because I would guess if you're sending out surveys or you're wanting people to complete complete online courses or anything like that, then A/B testing is absolutely essential, because it's all about constantly making improvements and constantly refining it to get a more accurate end result, or getting it, or your measurement might be around getting a certain number of people to fill something out or complete a training course in a certain amount of time because you want to decrease the drop off rate or something like that. So anything that's teaching you as you go along, positive or negative things, can only be good.
Okay, so have you kind of with probably A/B testing, let's say, have you seen kind of anything in the past which has kind of helped you avoid a vital mistake?
So the way I've used A/B testing is on emails, particularly whereby you would send an email out to, I don't know, 10,000 users, and the first 500 would get one design, the other 500 would get another, and then the system works out which one is getting the most click-throughs, and then it sends that one. Then you do that again, so you slightly refine the design again, and the idea is you just keep iteratively making it better and better. So I've used it like that, and in a very similar way for landing pages on a website, so seeing which ones are working. If we move this button over there, are they more likely to click it? And you're learning about human behavior because you're like, oh, that's because of that. So I don't know if that answers your question or it ties into L&D.
No, I think it's a really good one. I think one of the things we probably struggle on in L&D is the LMS. So basically, Paul, I'm assuming you don't know, but you probably do, and some of the listeners, what an LMS is. So basically, an LMS is a learning management system.
Yep.
And
I've heard it. Yep.
The experience is basically, let's just drop a load of content on there and assume that all our people are going to go on there. Nobody has ever said when they've joined a company, "Oh, I can't wait to get my hands on an LMS."
It's a bit like an intranet.
Yeah,
I've never seen a good intranet. Have you?
No, and this is exactly that. And I think because the person who built the intranet or the person who built the LMS, they built it not from a user experience. They built it from this is a task and it's got to get there.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And also, we have it all the time working in marketing and PR and working for a company who are quite sort of technical in what they do. You're teaching people how to write a lot of the time, and you're saying, they send you a case study and you read it and you think, oh, this is pretty dull. And then you give them a call and you speak to them and something amazing pops out that they've been doing on that project. And you think, well, that's the hook. That's amazing. Why have you not thought to put that in there? Surely that's obvious, but it's just completely different ways of thinking. And in their head, they're just like, I'm technical. I'm speaking to a technical person who works in my industry. But all the different user types that you've got interacting with that LMS are wildly different to the people who made it, or even that entire department just thinking the wrong way.
Yeah. This is where that human-centered design comes into place. Kind of
completely. Yeah.
Let me empathise and understand your frustrations more than anything. First and foremost.
Yeah, it's all about, and that's what we started with the web project. It's pain points. What are your pain points? And everything I try to do online is just about being helpful. It's just be as helpful as possible and solve people's problems, because then you're writing good content, then you're doing good design, then you're doing good UX.
So this kind of leads me beautifully into the other two things. So one of the things which I wanted to talk about is kind of segmentation and then kind of content strategy, I guess. A lot of the time, we design, let's say we design learner journeys and we go, okay, this is how a learner's going to go through there, and we're going to give them bite-sized bits of chunks of information and quite, we call edible content, bite-sized, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And actually, how do you use and how can you see L&D using segmentation, and maybe talk a bit about the content strategy and how you come up with that?
Yeah. So I mean, content strategy is a big thing, and even the word content, I personally don't like the word content. I think it was originally invented as a way for developers and coders to talk about everything that wasn't code. And now content gets used all over the place, doesn't it? A TV program is content. You're consuming more content. And actually, I think it's better to actually call things what they are. So I've made a sort of mantra when we did our web project of, we call text, we call photos, we call videos. We don't, otherwise everything just gets called content. It becomes this mash and you don't know what you're talking about. So almost stripping it back. I remember when I remember when libraries became learning resources centres, but people still called them libraries because that's what they are. So it's like, don't overcomplicate, just call it what it is. And in a way, it's sort of to make yourself sound a bit clever, I'm a content designer. It's a content strategy. That might be a controversial opinion, but I think it's easier to keep it as simple as possible. So um, it's a really interesting thing. So I've always one of the things I always say, and I get bored of myself saying it, is it's just everybody is different, and you know more about this than me, working in L&D, different learning styles and that sort of stuff. And I'm sure you've got an opinion whether or not that's a good thing. But it's like when you book a cinema ticket, you've got some people want to go and talk to someone in person and go and book it. Some people go up to the ticket machine. Some people still phone up. Some people do it online. Some people do it via the app. You're never going to be able to please everyone, but you should try. So it's about making it available in as many different formats as you possibly can, and cutting whatever you do in a different way. So we're working on a bit at the moment around social value, and to focus our minds, what we're doing is we're actually writing a brochure that's going to have a very, very small distribution. That brochure, no one really reads brochures anymore, but it focuses your mind around what are we actually trying to say, what images do we actually have, etc. And then you have that sort of piece, and then you cut it in lots of different ways, for different audiences, for different channels and things like that. But my key one is one of my bugbears is when someone sends me a PDF and says, "Can you put this on the website?" And the comeback to that is, well, you go to watch Lord of the Rings at the cinema. You don't go and watch them projecting the book pages in front of you. It's a different medium. You should treat it as such. So that's my 2 pence on content. I probably haven't touched on strategy much.
Well, to be honest, you've just nailed kind of L&D. A lot of time ago, here's a PDF. We want you to do something with it, and then it's like it's 25 pages, and it's a case of, right, well, no one's going to read that. Like nobody's got time. Time is the most valuable thing in this day-to-day world which we live in. Yeah. So why are you asking me to fix something and then saying, actually, but it's got to have this word in from page 27, it's got to have this page in from page 22. It's a bit crazy, but
yeah, we get it all the time. I had a meeting today actually, and I manage graphic designer at work, and someone asked him to. It's like, I want an infographic, and they sent him like a wall of text, and said, "Oh, I want that." And he pushed back and said, "Well, that's not an infographic. That's a document. I can put some graphics on it, but it's not an infographic." But then, the age-old thing of it's actually harder to write less, takes more time to write less and stuff. It's just people think, "Well, I've written that. I don't need to recut it for different people." But what's really interesting is people do that in their day-to-day life. If you talk with your friends a lot different than you talk with your manager at work, or if you're in an interview or something. So people are cutting the way but you can potentially be saying the same things. So they're cutting for different audiences when they're talking. So why can't they do it at work when they're writing stuff?
Yeah, it's a good challenge. So kind of how do you approach segmentation? How do you put it into kind of maybe a process of? I don't like the word process, but kind of what's your flow on that? How do you come up with it?
So when you say segmentation, what do you mean?
Well, maybe it's more like segmentation of audiences. I'm just trying to think how to define it. So yeah, so say for instance we've got a piece of I don't know, content, or maybe the way I'm probably trying to use segmentation is kind of more in a kind of user groups. I'm not really sure.
Okay. Yeah. So how do you split stuff out for different things? So yeah, I think a lot of it is driven by the platforms that you use. So when you say segmentation to me, what that means to me is around targeting, I think. So so when you're setting up a Google ad campaign, how do you segment your audience? How do you chop it up? So whether you do that geographically, whether you do that by age, whether you do that by behavior, there's lots of different ways, and it very much depends on the desired outcome. So at the university, what we used to do is we used to do a lot of Google advertising for our courses, and we would trial lots of different things. So we would look generally on that course, what geographical area do people who are currently on it come from? That gives us an idea of some targeting there to help segment it down a little bit. We'd even go as far as using what Google tells you about their other interests. So was one course that it said, they were into Bhangra music. So we were like, okay, we need to be on advertising on websites that talk about Bhangra music, maybe, or radio shows that play Bhangra music. We'll give that a go, and put a little bit of money on there, a couple of £100, and see if that actually brings back any sort of ROI. And then what was really really useful there, and the main key thing we took away from it was we would see certain headlines would get much more clicks, and then you could apply that to the offline. So it's all about making the online affect the offline. So it was like, oh, on this course they care about the facilities. On this course they care about outcomes and careers. So it really really helped inform all of our strategies going forward. So again, hopefully that answers your question on segmentation. I keep switching on my marketing brain.
No, that's really good. That's really good. So I guess one of the things which I'm massively big on personally is kind of consumer grade technology and kind of using social media as a learning tool. One of the biggest things we see in L&D is like, oh, we need to measure how many people. I'm like, you've got some good platforms. I use this analogy of fish where the fish live.
Yeah.
We don't need to recreate this wheel. So, something like a lockdown Instagram, it could be the biggest win, especially internally from a culture point of view and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But have you seen any great uses? And maybe we can mix this into a second part of a question, actually. Have you seen any great uses of social media as a learning tool? And actually, what's the best external campaign you've seen?
Yeah, so I would actually go quickly internal. So if you use Microsoft Teams?
Yeah.
I don't really like Microsoft programs generally, but that I thought that's absolutely fantastic. I remember from your presentation you were talking about WhatsApp, and that basically is that. So what I've tried to do at work is I do like a Fact Friday. So I go on there and I put like every Friday on our internal team like a little sort of tricky little ninja tips. So here's how to easily steal images from a PowerPoint presentation. Here's how to remove the background of an image in one click without any special software and stuff like that. So that probably ties into a bit into L&D. So I find that works really really well, and gets people are now like, oh, what are you going to do this week? And then so that's a nice. It's only a small thing, but I think it makes quite a big difference. And then other people can start doing that as well. Yeah,
I mean, the first thing what tends to happen with me is I go into a client and we go, oh, we need an LMS. I'm like, no, what you need is you need a thriving community.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, because that's like going to the doctors and say, I need this drug.
Yeah,
it's like, no, I'm the professional here. I will tell you what you need. If anything, you've self-diagnosed, and we have it all the time in marketing. I need a poster. I need a Twitter account. It's like, well, why do you need that? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And you're right. If the people aren't there to feed it, then you don't need an LMS.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was working with a client recently, I won't say name, and he was like, we need, basically our problem is this, and we need you to bring in an LMS what has a community function. And I was like, okay, so tell me your problem. So he told me the problem. I said, oh, I can see you using Slack.
Yep.
That fixes your problems. Why are you with us? And he was like, yeah, but our business won't sign off on Slack. We're using it naughtily. I'm like, So you as a user, as a person, have already figured out the way around your problem, which tends to happen a lot of times anyway.
Yes, yeah, and I've heard that as well. It's sort of like exactly. People, it's a conversation, and then they come to their own conclusion of what's wrong with them, for example. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? When people have sort of done all that self-diagnosis beforehand.
Yeah, it's craziness. It's crazy. So going back to kind of external campaigns, what's the one what really stands out to you?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would probably say Shaping Your World, just because it was so massive and all-encompassing, and it was something quite different that we've run. In that it was somewhere where it proved to me that my employer will let us try something really different and be really bold and trust us. And I think for me, that's something that's really important in the workplace, is that you're given that autonomy. So many people I talk to don't have it, and sometimes you don't realise how fortunate you are to have a bit of autonomy to sort of fail.
Yeah. I remember at a previous employee, they had come up with this great campaign, and it was like really different. And the first thing the business turned around is, you can't do that. It's off brand.
Yeah, exactly.
It's internal brand anyway. It wasn't for external eyes.
Yes, yeah, exactly, and that's just people finding the excuse to be risk averse, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Okay, so a couple more buzz questions. I just want
Okay.
to be mindful of your time, Paul, more than anything.
No, it's all right. Yeah. Go for it.
So let's just pretend you've bought 3 billboards. These can be digital billboards if you like, and you're outside a stadium, and 1 million people are going to see this billboard once you leave the stadium. What do you put on that billboard to it can be a speech, it can be an image, it can be whatever you want it to be, but what would you put on that billboard?
Well, surely the best thing you could put on it, or at least a twist on, is video or pictures of the people who are looking at the billboard. Because if anything's going to get people looking at it, it's pictures of themselves.
Okay. Okay.
But whether what you could probably, yeah, I'm thinking out loud, but whether you could put a marketingy spin on that, whereby you get some like these Snapchat filters where they make you look old or something like that, or where you sort of see yourself wearing the product that you're trying to sell, or something like that, or whether it's a video of the person earlier in the day who's passed and it recognizes them and it plays it back to them or something. I think as soon as you put up, you see it when you watch the football or whatever, don't you? As soon as people are on the camera, like, look, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm actually on the thing. So I think that's going to get more attention than anything.
Love it. Love it. I think that's a great shout. A great shout. So I guess when it comes to it can be your personal life, it can be professional. These questions can apply to whichever. But what's your biggest 80/20? So 80/20 being kind of, 20% of my contacts in my phone, I dial 80% of the time. The other 80%, I dial 20% of the time. So it's kind of
well,
like
that one's true.
yeah. So kind of, what's your biggest 80/20 in your either professional or personal life? Like, what's your biggest? It's more like a life hack, I guess.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I probably spend obviously I spend more time at waking hours at work than I do at home, but I spend more time thinking about I spend 80% of my time thinking about my home life and 20% of my time thinking about work. Don't tell my boss that.
Okay.
I think what that links into, I've got quite a big family. I've got 4 kids, so the thing there is, when I always say, whenever I'm at work, I spend my entire time missing my children. When I'm at home, I spend my entire time trying to run away from them and get some peace. So
beautiful, I love it. So I guess going back to this, and again, this can be personal life. All these questions apply to the same. But what's the top 3 digital tools you're using right now? And maybe it's digital tools or consumer grade tools, what people don't know about. I don't know. Take it however you like.
yeah, okay. I mean, this changes all of the time, so it's ones that are particularly useful for me at the moment, I would say. So we've started using a tool called Content Cal for our social media scheduling. There's probably loads of tools like it. It's quite a sort of cheap and cheerful tool, but it's been exactly what we need for our business. It allows a workflow, so we can actually approve posts as they go up. You can schedule stuff, and what it's meant is that we've been really able to empower the business more to feel like they own something, but at the same time not be so scared because they know it's going to be looked at and posted by professionals. So, and the best thing I think with any digital tool is if it can kill email and cut down on email, I'm using it. So so that works really, really well. Really, really good tool. 2 more do you need from me?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So we're using a tool which you would have heard of. Anyone who's got LinkedIn would have heard of a tool called Lead Forensics. What that basically is it's a big online database of companies. You plug it into your website. It's really good. Working in a B2B business, it's really, really good. And what it does is it allows you to see the names of the companies who've been to your website, what pages they've looked at, how they got there. And so we can really quantify leads and plug that into our CRM. So we can say, you have business with this client, or you're bidding for work at the moment with this client. I know they've looked at 20 case studies on our site related to this bid work, and we can lead score them. So just that level of intel is absolutely brilliant as far as I'm concerned. Another tool, which is a really fun little one, you probably use it. Have you heard of Pocket?
Oh yeah, I love
Yeah,
Pocket. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, amazing. I mean, it's like it was called something else before. I can't remember what it was called before, but yeah, it's just a great tool for just, oh, I've seen that, I'll read it later, and then you can just get it on your phone and read it later with and you can categorize things, and you don't need an internet connection. Great, you're traveling. Oh, I'll catch up on Pocket. I do it all the time when I write blog posts. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting, and come back to it later. So yeah, they're probably the top three at the moment.
Awesome. And it's good that you've got children, but I mean, you can apply it to your children or not to your children. But if you was to give a gift to a child, what gift would you give and why?
Wow, that's a tough one. If I was to give a gift to a child, this is going to sound a bit corny, but I would say time.
Okay.
So time, i.e., my time, I would say. So yeah, I think that's probably the one.
Beautiful. I like it. Time
Yeah.
time is one of them things where you can never ever get back. So I think it's like literally like the most valuable thing you can give.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, here's a deep one for you. Do you like yourself?
Do I like myself? So that's yeah. So okay. So I would say I'm my own worst critic. My wife would say that as well, that I am too hard on myself. Um, I I would say that the main problem I have, and whether or not you feel like this sometimes, is I fluctuate between sometimes thinking I'm pretty good at this, particularly at work. I'm fine, overconfident. I know my stuff. I'm hitting all my ROIs. I'm hitting all my stuff. I'm amazing. And then you have I'm making this up as I go along. What if someone finds me out? I am blagging this, and I mean I probably don't swing that extreme, but sometimes I think to myself, I'm getting a bit puffed up here. Cool it down, Paul. Or I think the opposite, like, no, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. You're making money. People seem to rate you. So that's probably sometimes I probably like myself too much, and sometimes I probably don't like myself enough.
Okay, great answer. Great answer. So I guess coming close to the end now, what is the future of digital marketing, do you think?
Future of digital marketing. So it is. I mean, it's the future. It's the present. It's people. It's just all about people. People used to, think the future is this tool, or it's that. It's always going to be people. It's that simple. So whether that be people working in digital marketing and their skills, but really it's about how people interact with it. Because you can't predict that 10 years ago it was like everyone's going to be digital, and then of course everyone suddenly gets bored of it all. It's like, stop bombarding me with this stuff, and everyone gets suspicious. Right now I know I'm being tracked in everything I do. I know that if I say, I had this the other day, my wife and I were talking about something quite dull, what color we were going to paint our kitchen, and then we didn't Google it or anything, and then we both get advertised that same color of paint on Instagram. So it's so it's people will, and how people interact with digital will dictate the future.
Okay. And what's the future of Paul?
Future of me? Well, actually, so his hot off the press. I actually handed in my notice yesterday. So my current employer. So I have just taken up a new role at the Royal Veterinary College, heading up their digital team.
Wow.
So I'm going back into education. So exactly as I was saying earlier, feeling that I'm working somewhere that's making a difference. So I've got 10 more weeks in my current role, and then I'm off there.
Wow. Well, let me be one of the first to congratulate you. Well done. Awesome
thank you,
news.
Danny.
Okay. Well, I guess going back. In fact, let me do one more question. So,
okay, yeah.
If it was, and this is, I'm going for 5 here, Paul. So this could be challenging, definitely.
Okay, no, go on.
What's the 5 tips or 5 pieces of information you would give to someone in L&D who want to either target their audience, or they want to take something from marketing and apply it? What's the 5 pieces of information, nuggets, you would give someone?
Okay, so first one is maths. Be good at maths. So I wasn't very good at maths at school. I failed my GCSE. I got D, and then I retook it when I was doing my A levels and got B. And I thought that's fine. I've done that now. Dusted. I don't need to worry about maths again. But everything leads back to maths. So if you want to do measurement properly, you need to be properly into that data and properly into to analysing it. So I would say really upskill on on analytics tools. Again, I wrote a blog post the other day about how everybody in their job, working in marketing, and I think this is true for L&D as well, should be producing their own analytics. They shouldn't be going to a team to get analytics. They are the person who is responsible as much as for putting content on there for reporting back on that content. So that's probably the first one. You want 5, do you? Wow. Yeah. Okay, hang on. Bear with me a second. I'll give this a bit of thought. So another one is, and this is probably just, it's probably not necessarily N&D, but it's like, let me think. Wow, you've stumped me here. So tips from marketing. So what you're saying is what works really well for marketing that you need to learn about.
Yeah, I guess, it's kind of what can we nick from marketing, and it doesn't have to be L&D, because you might not necessarily know the L&D world, but what's the 5 tips you would give to for marketing? In fact, let's rephrase it. What's the 5 things what prove the most value for you in digital marketing?
Okay, yep. So one of them is skills transfer, I would say. So never ever be afraid to share what you know, because it's because you think you're going to be ripped off or plagiarized or whatever. Because it's one thing telling somebody how to do things; it's another thing actually doing it. So make sure you're just as open and honest with your colleagues as possible. And I've been fortunate to work in industries where that's happened. Even though we're competitors, we actually share best practice with each other, rather than keeping your cards close to your chest. So I think that's a really important one for marketing and for digital, because if we all just want to get better together. So one of those around skills transfer. I mean, digital, as I said, just comes back to analytics all the time. So improving, and that's why I think digital marketing in particular is sort of seen this massive rise, because it's like, well, finally we can prove something. We can prove that stuff works. So I'm going to struggle with 5 here, Danny.
Okay. Okay, when it comes to campaigns, when you design your campaign, what is the one thing which maybe we can use it on the shaping your world?
Yeah.
Maybe we can apply it to that. But what's the one thing you kind of took from that where you think, wow, I didn't see this, and then now I've seen it, it's really valuable. I guess let me put it into my context to kind of see if that helps. But for example,
so that's probably around. It's around keeping stuff fresh. It's around sort of constantly tending that garden. As I said, it's like it's never a done job. So and the struggle there, I suppose, can be to keep up the enthusiasm. If you've worked for 9 months on a web project and you've hit the go live, and then you're like, right, now is actually the beginning. Now we start getting the stats in and working out what is working, what isn't working, what we need to tweak, getting feedback from the business and that sort of stuff. It's difficult to sort of find that energy to do it. But I mean, that's why, as I said, I've dabbled in print design and stuff like that. That's what I really love about digital marketing, is that it's not about, it goes back to that time piece. You haven't wasted your time, because you are learning the whole time. So if something falls flat, it's like, that hasn't been a waste of time, because I'm getting feedback on that. I know some people have jobs. My brother used to work in a temping job where he was in a projects team, but never ever. So they pitch projects, and then the projects would never happen, and then they pitch another project and the project never happened. That's the worst job I can imagine, where you don't have any end product to and you take nothing from it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I will help on this one and fill one out. I think everybody should check your blog. I mean, I learned so much of it when I came across it. some of the things that you put on there, kind of top tools for 2019.
Yep.
There's just a wealth of knowledge what you've shared. So
okay, thanks, Danny. As I said, sometimes I feel I'm a bit of a generalist on there, and it's like, oh, if anyone, I write about search engine optimization. If anyone who's an expert in that will think, yeah, okay, this is pretty schoolboy stuff.
Well, it's all about that. It's all about that context, because it might be someone who's like the expert at that, but for someone like me, this is great knowledge, and I think it's about kind of understanding. People will come there in your industry, and people come there who's not in your industry wanting to understand it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Danny. I appreciate that.
So I think it's really valuable, massively. Okay, so going full circle, 3 more questions and we are done. So
cool.
Right at the start, I asked you to pick 6 numbers. Okay, these 6 numbers tallied to a random list of things what I have on my iPad. Mm-hmm. So the story is this: you're on a desert island and you find these 6 items. What are you going to do with them? Sorry, it was 4 items. You found a bottle cap, a rubber band, a pair of stockings, and a spring.
What, a spring?
Yeah, a spring.
A spring. Wow. Okay, so you could probably make, if you're on a desert island, you could make a pretty good weapon, I think, from a rubber band and a spring. Okay. So you could, you got double sort of trajectory and range with that. So you probably go hunting, find yourself some food to tie you over. And then I've got a bottle top and some stockings.
Yep.
So so some stockings. Oh, well, what could you do with those? Yeah, I suppose you could fill them with sand, and then you could. Well, no, actually, you could probably fill them with water or something that would float, and put a message in there, and send that off to sea. Get rid of the stockings. And do you generally get good answers to these questions or not?
Never get good answers.
That makes you feel better, thank you. Yeah. And the bottle top, I would just bury it, and then if someone else in the future gets stranded there, they would think, oh, there's been someone here before, so there's hope for me, because they must have got off this island.
Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, so I mean, right at the very start, going full circle, I asked you what you wanted to be when you grow older. And I guess, Paul, as you know, we're constantly growing, and as you've mentioned throughout this podcast, it's kind of all about your personal development and you growing as much as everybody else and kind of sharing. But if I was to say to you now, Paul, what do you want to be when you grow older, knowing full well we never stop, what would your answer be?
I would probably say a teacher, and I don't mean literally a teacher. Actually, I wouldn't say that. That's probably a bit arrogant. I would probably say remembered. And I would say a lot of what I do, and part of this is the reason I blog. Part of this is the reason at work I try and interact with lots of different teams and stuff. It's all about that sort of, what do I call it sometimes, an immortality complex. And that whole, wanting to sort of leave a little bit of an imprint, and not disappear from history.
Okay, that's beautiful. So where can people go to find out a little bit more about what you're up to, and kind of, where can we find you?
Yeah, so as you've already mentioned, there's my blog, which is deepfat.co.uk. So fat spelt PHAT. Obviously, that's a play on my surname Fryer, as in Deep Fat Fryer. And a 80s hip hop reference as well. And you can find me on Twitter under the same thing, so deep_fat. I'm on there, and then I'm on LinkedIn as well, where I just call myself my actual name.
Awesome. Well, listen, Paul, let me take a time out to, again, really appreciate you helping me when I've had questions or kind of like need a better understanding of something. It's really, I personally appreciate it. But yeah,
no, it's cool. No, keep sending stuff over, Danny, and I find it really interesting monitoring what you're up to. You're the most prolific social media person I know, and I don't know how you keep feeding all those different channels.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point now where so I have my podcast, I have my meetup, I have this community what I've built, and I'm like, and then now I've just took on this kind of all hush side project as well.
Yeah.
So
how much of that actually pays the bills?
Realistically, none of it right this second. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
That's good going though. As I said, I mean, I always think, oh, I need to be putting more stuff out on social media, but then you think, well, I don't want to be like rah rah, look at me. So I tend to do is sort of I keep like notes for my blog on my phone, and I wait for it all to sort of come together and tie themes up, and then write more long form and have that focus time rather than doing it little and often. But yeah, so yeah, I admire that you're producing that much stuff.
Awesome. That's good. I like that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's Paul. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
That's okay. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. As I said, not as an L&D professional. Hopefully, I haven't kept going off piste and talking marketing.
No. I think everybody who will listen to this will appreciate it and get a lot from it. Definitely.
Cool. Thank you, Danny.
Ace. Cheers, Paul.
Okay. Cheers, mate.
Enjoy seeing you. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.